Hello and welcome to another edition of BNEWS In Depth. I'm your host, Rich Hosford. This month we are delving into a subject we've touched on before, the fields of life science and biotech and what Burlington can do to attract more of these growing companies. We'll take this in three parts. First, what the town is doing. Second, what local developers can do. And third, how the state can help. We'll also have a special segment at the end, so stay tuned for that. We'll start this month's show with a talk with Burlington Planning Director Kristen Kasner about zoning bylaw changes in the works and other initiatives the town is undertaking to attract more biotech companies. Let's take a look. I'm now joined by Burlington Planning Director Kristen Kasner to talk about the town's efforts in promoting biotech in Burlington. Kristen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So just wanted to talk big picture a little bit. What, looking back the last few years, as Burlington has grown and changed, what made biotech kind of stand out as like a good, business to kind of pursue for Burlington?
So Burlington's done a really great job since really the beginning of commercial development after the highways of really trying to diversify industry and welcoming in the 90s software technology, and in the 2000s really looking at what current business needs were with amenities and walkability and the redevelopment of the district and Third Ave, and continuing along what's next, what do we want to make sure of, and recognizing that Boston is the epicenter for biotechnology and life science in the world. Looking at the development of Kendall Square, looking at movement around Massachusetts into the suburbs, and looking at movement that's not necessarily happening in Burlington. And we've done quite a bit to try to attract business, and I think we've kept a really good job of, Burlington is the place to do business. So we have a lot of fantastic companies here, but we don't have a lot of life science companies. And there's a lot of life science movement in the market. So about 2 years ago, we identified that as an issue. And we said, what are the issues? And we looked at our zoning bylaw, we looked at the regulations. And last January, we went through to town meeting for an amendment to clarify life science in the bylaw. It was allowed before, but it was a random mashup of different uses that created life science, to define the use as well as define parking regulations and create for additional density if you were building life science. So that was last January. In the interim, in September, we were awarded the platinum status from MassBio, which I know you want to talk about in a little while.
Yep.
And then we recognized, okay, so we have it in the regulations, and for one of the regulations for to be platinum was it needed to be by right. So in the IH district, we did allow life science by right. We only have 3 existing IH properties. One is the Burlington Marriott, the other is the Hilton Garden, and the other one is the Garage at Oracle, which we recognize is not very high redevelopment potential. So looking at that and working with a lot of our property developers and sites that potentially are eligible for redevelopment, we said, okay, where should we be incentivizing for life science, and looking at life science and allowing properties to be ready for the market. And that's where we get to the rezoning applications, as well as the amendments to the IH district to really put it more in line with what we're looking for.
Yeah, so I want to unpack a little bit of that. So last year, what happened was there was an article passed by town meeting that kind of, like you said, clarified things like, because the town has, like, if you have this big of a building, you have to have this big of a parking lot. But there was recognized that, lab space needs fewer employees, so that, sort of allowances for, smaller parking things like that could be used because they don't have the need, right? That was what was done before.
Right, our parking ratios were for traditional office and didn't recognize that lab space had far fewer people and trips to the site than a traditional office, and we wanted to recognize that in the parking ratio.
And so what's going to be voted on in January of this year is changes to the industrial high-rise, IH, as you mentioned, and that's making it so certain sites, I think there's 3 that are being eyed now, could be by right. So, it's less of a hurdle for companies looking to come into town to, locate here. Am I understanding that correctly?
A lot of the by right use is a marketing tool.
Sure.
It is by right, meaning you don't need a special permit. You do need site plan approval. You also have regulations by the Board of Health. So I wouldn't say, in terms of our review process, it's not very different, but with the by right designation, but it certainly is a perceived hurdle that we wanted to break down that barrier to make sure it wasn't one for companies looking at Burlington. We did have Matt Daniels from Jones Lang LaSalle come in one of our early meetings, really to look at kind of a map of where life science is in the suburbs. And what you see, you have Millipore and you have a handful of small companies in Burlington, but along Middlesex Turnpike, you have a very heavy load of companies in Billerica and Bedford. And in other places within the Commonwealth. And there's actually more life science outside of Kendall Square than in Kendall Square. And, as I said earlier, why is it not in Burlington? We wanted to make strategic changes to attract as well as provide space, and that's what we're looking at here. Knowing that the IH district was one that people were looking at, we had inherent issues with the district itself. The district was written back in the 70s. There was very different idea of how we should be building office buildings, office parks, as is, we have a presentation that we have included in the backup to town meeting that really gets at, what was the origin of the IH district. And it was kind of this towers in a park of having this huge high-rise building and then really nothing around it. So it wasn't very walkable. It was, 155 feet was the height for IH. We brought it down to 90 with this amendment. We also wanted to promote flexibility in where development went on site. So we broke down the really wide setbacks. So it was, you had this giant building dead center of giant tall building dead center of a site, which really didn't give you ability to adjust for site flexibility to allow walkable paths, to allow for clustering of buildings. And we also wanted to incentivize parking under the building and not have a disincentive to building surface parking, where if you did have some underbuilding, you have, again, additional flexibility to potentially provide more green space on site and more amenities. So
just being, pretty much the message is, Burlington, it wants to be more flexible, work with companies that, it is interested in attracting.
Yes. I mean, we want to maintain appropriate level of oversight. Right. But in terms of flexibility, it's not just, it's flexibility for us to also work with developments to provide the best development we can for those around it, as well as those experiencing the site itself. So it's flexibility for not just developers developing a site, but for us to work with them to develop the best site possible.
Now, you just said, with appropriate oversight, and I just want to bring up there was discussion. We had some articles about it on BNEWS. When this was first proposed, there was a concern raised by Dr. Weiner of the Board of Health, pretty much just to ensure that, subsequent projects would also have Board of Health, would need Board of Health approval. Just talk a little bit about that situation and, your department's dedication to making sure that, these are safe locations and to, working with that board.
Sure. So originally, back in 2010, I think it was, we had passed a biotechnology bylaw, which at the time we had hoped it, the same thing we hope for here with life science, to attract more biotechnology, because that was an industry that was certainly in the market. We passed the bylaw at the time. It was okay. I think we've done a lot more, leaps and bounds over that with life science. However, at the time we had kind of tethered Board of Health regulation with biotechnology within the bylaw, which is almost like tethering Concom approvals with regulations in the bylaw. But it was with the special permit. So initially the Board of Health and Dr. Weiner had concerns about removing the special permit from the criteria in the IH district for life science because that was the connection directly for life science with the Board of Health. As you know, the Board of Health has RDNA regulations,
Right.
which all life science didn't capture everything about life science, just the RDNA piece. They have been working diligently to try to expand the RDNA to expand to all biological agents in life science. They, I believe, look to be voting on that in their meeting in January prior to town meeting. That's the hope. However, with standalone Board of Health regulations, it's a regulation that's in place. Everyone is subject to it at any, when they're enacted, everyone's subject to it. There's no vesting or grandfathering based on
Right.
the zoning. They're completely separate from each other. So now actually it gives us more clarifies the process as well as gives us really distinct powers of oversight. So I think the Board of Health, as we recognize, is we want the Board of Health to be involved. We want to hear from them. We have professional staff within the Board of Health as well as Dr. Weiner, who have done a tremendous job in the past for looking at these uses and ensuring that they're all things are put in place to be properly operating in Burlington. It is an industry that's heavily regulated by the state and federal government as well, but it's fantastic to have the Board of Health be involved, as well as update their regulations to be more involved, responsive, and have the oversight needed to make sure that for an expanding industry that's important for Massachusetts and for Burlington, that we do everything the way we should to ensure the best interest of the town.
Yeah, I think people would be a little bit more comfortable knowing that the Board of Health from Burlington is part of that process.
Yeah, and I want to thank, the Board of Health have been great through this process, through the past process. Last January, if you recall, Dr. Weiner was on our original panel to talk about life science uses, and I think he was on subsequent panels that you had hosted as well.
So, for a version of this show.
Yeah, he's been important in the dialogue about life science in Burlington.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned it briefly, but so Burlington now has a designation from Mass Bio, which is an organization sort of works in this industry and has certain criteria, which I'll let you explain. But, we recently went from the bronze level all the way up to the top, platinum level. Talk about how that came about.
So we had been designated bronze. A big part of the bronze designation was we didn't have anywhere in Burlington that accommodated life science at the time. That was years ago, as well as we didn't have any by right area for life science. So a big part of the designations for Mass Bio is community readiness for biotechnology and life sciences. We hadn't really taken a lot of those steps forward. We allowed it by special permit. We had the bronze rating. With the changes we made in January, coupled with a couple of the sites that had come in, Millipore, as well as the Keurig site, had some by right types of uses that would permit life science. With the addition of these three sites, we've been designated platinum, but it only really helps the case that we Burlington's ready for life science companies. But the Mass Bio, it's like the hot list. It's it's the list that everyone goes to that's looking at life science in Massachusetts, in Europe, coming over. It's the list, and if you're really not at the top, and you're really not on the list. And I think that is one of the reasons why you see a map and there's not a lot of dots in Burlington. So
hopefully moving ahead now, we've got that designation.
Yeah, in terms of a marketing piece, it's huge, and it's I think it's really something that we should be proud of, and that the work that we've done, as well as the Gutierrez Company and other folks that have worked to help us get the designation and help us get through the bylaw, and then these new other companies coming in for the zoning change, only continues to help the marketing.
Excellent. Just a couple last points. So I know there's a lot of work being done to attract new companies. How does Burlington work with the existing, what's already here, as far as either the biotech companies or the developers to kind of make this work even better and moving forward in the future?
So we, as I mentioned, we've always tried to embrace a diversified economy in Burlington. we have a lot of office space for traditional office. We don't have a lot of non-traditional office space, so one of the reasons why these rezonings, as well as just the identification of life science, is important to continue to diversify. We have to diversify employment as well as spaces that we do work in. So I think that's critically important. We have a lot of office, but our existing office is really strong. We're a strength in medical device, software security. We're increasingly having a lot more data and big data companies, and we've talked about it before, but we're just talking about it here. Is the biggest companies that came out of the gold rush wasn't gold; it was the shovels and the
Right.
So therefore, we hope to promote life science, but also with the convergence of big data and security and device. I mean, we hope that the supporting industries and evolving industries that we currently have will certainly strengthen our ability to be on the map in a big way for the next era of innovation, life science, the next types of life science. But anyway, as well as we have just hired our new economic development director, Melissa Tentakoulis, which I hope you have on a show some coming soon.
We are working on. Figure we'd give her at least a week to settle in.
Yeah, exactly. But I have high hopes for her and her role, and continuing to just help us succeed in retaining business as well as growing business and creating the right environments for new and different industries that we don't even know exist or how work will be. So.
Well, it sounds all very exciting, that there's a lot of big potential for the future. So I'd like to thank you for coming in, sharing your thoughts, letting us know kind of what's going on, and we'll look for that town meeting vote and see what comes next.
Thank you. Well, and I hope all your viewers support us in town meeting and the end of January. So hope to see them there.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Vice President of Development for the Gutierrez Company, Scott Weiss, who talks about what developers and building owners can do to make their properties better fit the needs of biotech companies. All right, I am now joined by Scott Weiss from the Gutierrez Company, talking about how business and developers are working on this issue of biotech and the future growth of it. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I just want to start off, you guys, we'll get into more details a little bit later, but have put a lot into biotech. How did that industry become a priority for Gutierrez?
Sure. Well, I would probably say it really was an outgrowth of our first big project here in Burlington with Millipore Sigma being located up at 400 and 600 Summit Drive, which
Right.
is pretty prominent location. They're a very large life science company, and having them locate here and building out their lab project as well as their headquarters office space here in Burlington, really their hub, North American hub, I think is how they refer to it, was really a good project and for us to build, and really got us more engaged, if you will, in the biotech life science community, and really see an opportunity for both the company but also the community to help diversify the types of companies that are present in Burlington.
And how did, initially did Gutierrez and Millipore, kind of hook up or, kind of get in contact with each other? How did that deal sort of develop over time?
Sure. So one of the things that the Gutierrez Company has really done well over the years and has a great focus, and we've worked very cooperatively with the town, is to get sites and projects pre-permitted, if you will. Shovel-ready is sort of the term. So we had a development project at the summit that was ready to go and in place, and Millipore was actually looking for, at the time it was just Millipore, they hadn't acquired Sigma Aldrich at the time to become Millipore Sigma, and they were looking for a new facility that was going to integrate for them some of their office space and their lab space, and looking through the area, and the fact that we were ready and could really meet their schedule requirements was a big factor in helping them to locate at the summit and be ready. So having that pre-permitted and being able to respond to the business demand to deliver a facility on their schedule was really critical. And I know they were looking throughout the area. They have facilities in Bedford and Warren Billerica and other areas around both the state and New England, that it was important for them to be located in the area, but not necessarily in Burlington. So being ready, being responsive, us being ready and working with the town was a huge element into bringing them and having them locate here in Burlington.
Now you mentioned shovel ready, and now I know currently you guys are working on a project where you're building ready.
Sure.
So talk a little bit about the difference, because I think people think, oh, it's a building. You can put one thing or another thing into it. But
Sure.
when you have a building that's designed for office compared to designed for lab, it's significant difference. So talk a little bit about 4 Burlington Woods, and then we'll lead into our little piece that we did.
Sure. So we're really excited about this as well. So we built 4 Burlington Woods, which is a 4-story, 100,000 square foot office building located behind the Burlington Marriott. And that was an office building that was built a little bit differently than some of your typical or older office buildings. We had taller floor-to-floor heights, a little bit more support on the floor loading of what it could carry. And the building hasn't been occupied, so what we did was we undertook a fairly major reconstruction effort to convert that building from office ready to be lab life science ready. And in doing so, what we have to do is increase the amount of air that we can bring into the building. We have to increase the amount of electric capacity and water capacity, both water supply coming in and then water treatment and the facilities to treat it and discharge that water too. So it's a major effort, upwards $7-9 million in terms of converting that property to be ready for a lab life science company to come in.
Well, rather than go through all the details telling people, we can actually show them, because you recently gave me a tour and put together those little pieces, so we can check that out now.
So this is 4 Burlington Woods. It's a 100,000 square foot building that we built a few years back. Built it for office space. It hasn't been occupied as of yet. So given some of the interest in the area for life science uses and labs, we've invested millions of dollars to convert the building to make it a lab-ready life science building. With our renovation, we converted it so about half of the building is all lab ready, because with any lab space, we're going to end up having both lab area and office space to support that lab area. So that was the investment, to make it about 60% of the building fully lab ready, which includes some of the workspaces for testing and evaluation. So one of the first places we start when we talk about converting a building to be lab ready is the difference in the amount of air, heating and cooling that you need in a building. For the office space in the building, we have this large unit, air handling unit, that provides both heating and cooling for the office space. What we did is we had to take out one of them, replace it with a number of pieces of equipment over here that includes the air handling unit. You can see stacks over there for exhaust units, so that lab space has to have direct fresh air and direct exhaust that's separate. And it has to have 100% outside air, whereas your office space had some recirculating air, both fresh and recirculating air. So it doesn't require as much of a robust ventilation system as you need when you talk about lab space. The pipes are allowed for a water-cooled system, as opposed to the office building uses an air-cooled system. So a little bit of difference and a lot more equipment that goes into how the buildings operate. When it comes to a lab service, your lab equipment, your fume hoods and your test benches and all of that requires far more power. So you have to upgrade your electrical service. In addition to that, instead of just your bathrooms, restrooms, and a couple of kitchenettes, suddenly you have water of lots of different types in your lab space. And then a lot of your lab users also use a variety of different gases. What we've done with this building is put in all of the infrastructure that we need to help support any variety of those services. A lot of labs don't do anything that's really all that problematic, but in the case that they do, we have a water treatment system for your wastewater that's coming out of the building, where all of the network water from the building will come down, come into a tank. It's actually treated and tested 3 times before it leaves the building. If a tenant has a system, sometimes they have coolers or freezers or heaters, ovens that they use in their work, and it's critical that any material they have and create stays at a constant temperature. So you can't suffer a power outage. So we have a backup generator and battery systems that will help support in case of a power outage, so that those facilities will stay at a constant temperature.
All right, so that was the tour that you gave me of the new 4 Burlington Woods, and a lot of it was pretty clear that it takes a lot to make a building converted from office to lab space. So
sure, when you're not necessarily in the building business, it's a lot of boxes and wires and pipes.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it that gets installed and is necessary to support some of the research and development that goes on in the life science business.
Right, and you can tell that it's just like you said, just the systems itself for the building are just so vastly different compared to what you need for just an office space building. So as you said, in the video and beforehand, it was a good size investment for the company to do this. What kind of gave you the confidence that this was the right way to go?
That's a good question. So we have had that building available for office use for a bit of time, and we've had great interest in it. We've also known and seen over the last several years, there's definitely an interest in and growth in office space, certainly in the urban areas, having some tenants moving to the city, to Boston, Cambridge. But there's also, during the same time frame, been an enormous continued growth of bio and life science companies. In fact, I was at an event hosted by one of the major area brokers, CB Richard Ellis. They said over the last 5 years, life science industry has grown by nearly 1 million square feet in added space each year over the last 5. So there's a huge market, and I think others have mentioned there's more life science space outside of Cambridge and Kendall Square throughout the area than there is in, and a huge demand for that continued growth. So we see, both with the presence of Millport Sigma, with providing some additional capacity in buildings like 4 Burlington Woods, and helping diversify that company base in Burlington, that there's a large and growing demand for life science space, which has to be a little bit different than your typical office, as we said.
Right.
And being ready to meet that demand is really where we're focused right now.
And what do you see as some of the advantages that Burlington has over other areas in the state as far as attracting these companies?
So Burlington's done a terrific job over the last probably 20 years and even longer of having the amenities to serve both residents and employees working in the area. And that has increasingly become a huge driver in where companies locate. A lot of companies, certainly with the millennial populations, wanting to serve and be in a downtown location where you can live, work, and play. And Burlington has really now brought and embraced that in the communities. The number of restaurants here, the hospitality, having a world-class medical facility like Leahy Clinic, having everything that you need, that you can be in this community and have all of those facilities available is huge. And as the life science industry and community also grows and matures, they were previously in sort of off the beaten path, older buildings, maybe not the prime locations. Now they want to be in the prime locations where the office products have been, and they want to. Their employees want to take advantage of all of those amenities. And Burlington is so well positioned to help continue its growth and diversification because of that amenity base, to be, work and eat and
Right.
entertain and healthcare and all of that coming together is a great combination.
Now, when you talk, obviously we just talk about all the things that we have. When you talk to these companies and they're, trying to make the pitch for this area, are there some things, that maybe the town or, the state could do differently or, add that, they're looking for that you think would, help?
Yeah, so we're always, I think Burlington is very, maybe not unique, but very well positioned in that we work together very well with the town, with the municipality. Also with the state representation has been really good in terms of how we coordinate, so that has been a very positive thing. But being able to be positioned and have opportunities that are ready, like we were with Millipore Sigma, is hugely important. And to the life science industry, certainly to companies that maybe aren't located here, aren't as familiar, they may just be looking up things online and looking at zoning or other information that they can get online, and we may not even hear from those companies if you don't have the right types of information presented online. And Burlington has been taking tremendous steps with the zoning change last year to define life science as a use, Board of Health regulations that are going forward right now, which puts the town more in line with other communities that do a lot of life science, and NIH guidelines, which is a tremendous advance, as well as the current zoning changes that are being discussed and put forward. I think all will help make the town more attractive to life science industries.
And and the Mass Bio Platinum designation that the town also received this year. So
yeah, that was a tremendous advantage, because Mass Bio really does, as an industry group, represent the life science community that's here, but it is also a gateway to outside of the area. I think I saw in some of the state and Mass Bio's information that the greater Massachusetts area, the Boston, Cambridge area, all the way out to the suburbs, now is home to 18 or 19 of the 20 largest life science companies in the world, which is great. They all have a presence here, all of those 18 to 19 companies, which is a tremendous increase over the last 10 years or so, where maybe it was half as many.
Now, I know this is a little bit off topic for your particular point of view, as the developer and landlord, but you just talk about some of the exciting things that you hear about these companies doing that when you're working with them, because it is obviously everyone's focused on the business and trying to get the tax revenue in, but it is also exciting just to kind of hear about some of the stuff that is going on at these companies.
I think that is definitely true. When we have talked with some of the companies, certainly our experience with Millipore Sigma in town here, is the companies themselves and the people we interact with are really excited about the work they do, because they are passionate about that work. And they are really focused on what they're bringing in the life-saving improvements in drugs and medicines and products that they bring to market. And that definitely is felt by us on our side when it comes to delivering a facility where they can work and make these advancements. It is amazing to look at some of the space that they're working in, the lab space. It feels a little bit like your chemistry class in high school.
Much better technology.
Much better technology, and looks a heck of a lot cleaner than my memories of chemistry class. But it is amazing in terms of the stuff that they do in terms of how they operate and how they make these products from the chemistry labs of the past, which is mixing and developing a whole bunch of different products, to what they call now the biologics, which is really about advancing and I think of it in a very basic sense of growing bacteria or growing cells or growing certain products that now becomes medicine, and how they transition that. It's incredibly exciting to be even on the edge a part of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's all very exciting. I think there's, like you said, a lot of future potential and growth in this area, and wish you all the best of luck, and thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. We go now to my conversation with State Rep Ken Gordon about what the state can do to work with communities and businesses to promote biotech and life science companies both in the Commonwealth and in specific districts. I am now here with State Rep Ken Gordon to talk about what the state government can do to partner with towns and companies to further biotech. Thanks for joining me, Ken.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
So I just want to start off kind of broad, and just, not specific to our area, but just in general, for the state of Massachusetts, what is kind of happening as far as, trying to become a state that attracts biotech, and why is that a priority?
Well, this is our industry. Biotech is really the lifeblood of Massachusetts. People come here because of the opportunities they have to find industry in the sciences and our trained workforce. And so we know that we've got to continue to nurture that industry in order essentially to maintain our economy. I know that's a fancy way of saying basically that's what brings a lot of people and money into Massachusetts and keeps our lifestyle the way it is. So we're going to continue to do that. We work with organizations like Mass Life Science, like Mass Bio, to continue to be updated, to remain, to get information as to what we can best do to support the life sciences industry, to support the computer industry, because they go hand in hand.
Right. There's a technology.
The technology industry, yeah, it all works together.
And traditionally, I know Cambridge has always been seen as like the hub of life sciences, but there's, Burlington in the area, Bedford as well, has sort of been making some gains. Talk about, that progress of sort of having the industry sort of expand out of Boston a little bit.
Yeah, our society is changing altogether. So first of all, we know that the rents are high in Cambridge and Somerville and Boston. So as one easy approach is when we talk to businesses, we talk to them about the cost of leases, the cost of space in the suburbs, especially Burlington, compared with Boston, and it's a very attractive alternative to them, to many of them. Many of the employers want to live out here. There's a little more space. Along with all of that is the technology that's developed in the last 10 to 15 years, which allows people to work in places outside of clusters. It used to be that 30 years ago, you'd be in the financial district if you were in that industry, or we as lawyers all were in the same basic few miles of each other.
Right.
Because the amenities that we needed were all present at the libraries, for example, were all there. Well, now our libraries are online, and there's not so much of a need. So in that industry, and among lawyers like me, we're all around the suburbs now, and you see the addresses in that way. You don't need to have a Boston address. And this is how it works in the sciences industries. You don't need to necessarily have that Kendall address in order to gain the reputation, to maintain the reputation as an industry leader, as perhaps once was.
Yeah, but I would say, there's also still some kind of strength of having, industry near each other in some ways, because I know that's been some of the push around here. It's like, we have Millipore, and that's going to then help, attract others. Is it just also because, maybe it's amenities that are important, not necessarily like libraries or research, but more like, what people want to live? Is that what we're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a lifestyle thing, like you said, and that has caused Burlington to increase in its amenities, like the restaurants, like the fitness centers and things like that. But also, businesses will generate their own sort of feeder businesses to become successful around them. They're just not all clustered in the same space anymore.
Right. So it's like expanding but also grouping in other areas.
Correct. And so what we do here in Burlington and Bedford is we're looking at not only the life sciences businesses themselves, but supporting the other businesses like the restaurants around them, because that's what people are looking for. They're looking, how am I going to, what's my life going to be if I move my business to that particular area? Not necessarily out of Cambridge, but out of California, out of Europe, and
Right.
out of Israel, and coming here to set up a headquarters.
Now, you recently hosted a state committee hearing at Northeastern campus in Burlington, and then it was followed up by a tour at Millipore and a discussion about this very topic. Talk about how that came about and sort of what the goal of that day was.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm the House Vice Chair of the Committee on Economic Development. So as part of that work, we had a discussion and we agreed to come to Burlington because this is the center of our work in life sciences. Again, certainly outside of Cambridge, Somerville area. So what we've got is we've got Northeastern that's creating a great educational opportunity. We've got businesses like Millipore creating that opportunity as well. And so we've got everything that we need right here. So the committee came out to learn a little more about what can we do, what are our opportunities. And we heard from the organizations looking at this industry statewide, which is Mass Life Sciences, Mass Bio, but we also heard from Northeastern, and we took a tour of Northeastern as well, and we saw all of these industries coming together. We heard from Leahy. Again, they're a great consumer of these life sciences advancements, so they could show us what we're doing right there.
And what are some of the things that kind of took away from that sort of meeting of state, local government, education, and business?
Well, as much as we're doing on the state level to help create opportunities for life sciences to come to Massachusetts, we can do more. And we need space. We need to have, we do have plans that will provide seed capital for some of the startups and some of the newly forming life sciences companies. That's important. But we also need to have places for them to go. And in Burlington, we have areas for them to go, but we need to, and we have actual space now, but we need more of it. So what we're going to do is find ways to help our municipalities to increase the opportunities for these businesses with respect to space.
And what are some of the things that you think can be done that maybe are only being done slightly but could be increased, or new things altogether that the state could do with municipalities to sort of help this cause?
Well, I've been having discussions with some of the folks that you're going to have here on your show, with Kristen Krager, the planning director, Kristen Kasner, the planning director from Burlington, and Scott Weiss representing some of the developers from Gutierrez, but there are other developers here. And what we're going to do together as partners is we're going to provide economic opportunities. So the state can provide, we're looking for ways that the state can provide better financial incentives to the town so that they have more flexibility to do what they need to do, because the towns and the cities have different needs, different priorities, so we want to be there to help them.
And one of the things I think that people talk about, as far as living in Boston, like I said, rent's expensive for the businesses, but also for the workers.
Right.
Do you think that towns like Burlington and Bedford and our other areas a little bit outside of the city are sort of poised to have, is it more than just restaurants and fitness centers, but also housing, and how does all the big picture kind of come together for, overall growth?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have a housing crisis right now, and that is, housing and traffic are the two things that are keeping us from growing to the extent that we need to. And so we've got to address that. The governor has a bill that will make it easier for municipalities to create the zoning changes that they need in order to provide more housing opportunities for people. And we've got to be creative in the way we do that. Different towns and cities want to do it a different way, and we, on the state level, respect the autonomy of those municipalities to address housing in the way that they need to, but it's balanced with the fact that we need more housing opportunities. Housing is expensive, and there isn't much of it. So if a company comes here and they want to bring 50 or 100 or 200 employees into an area, well, where are they going to put them? And so
Right.
we need to, in a strategic way, find housing opportunities for people. And then it goes to transportation. Okay, so they're here now. How are they going to get about? Does that create traffic?
Right.
It's sort of that three-legged or that stool of planning that we have to do. And with that, we've got to increase public transportation access and look at all of our transportation infrastructure. So that comes with it as well.
And one of the other components, as we mentioned, of that, the hearing you had was the Northeastern. How do you see the state sort of helping support the education, that gets these people? Because it's great to have biotech, but it's also very difficult to, it's a difficult field, I imagine. A lot of studying, a lot of education that needs to go into it. So how does the state can work with educational centers to sort of, promote and attract students?
Right. So first of all, it is difficult, but there are opportunities for students at various levels of training to get involved in our life sciences industry. And we learned that. We heard from people who came in with very advanced degrees, with bachelor's degrees, and with high school degrees. There are many jobs that are opening up in this area. And so what can we do? I mean, we really have to look at support for the programs in our public schools, ways that we can help increase access to those programs. And also, we need to talk about them a little bit more. We have jobs in this area, and our students should, statewide, should have access to situations where they're hearing about them a little bit more. These are places they can go. But also, we have our regional vocational technical high schools can provide opportunities for people in those fields as well as the public colleges. So in all of those ways, I think we can look at our curriculum, our programs, and how they fit into the overall economy that we have, the need for these workers.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of education about education, letting students know that these opportunities are out there, these sort of fields are out there, and it's something,
Yeah, I mean, some students are watching this and parents are watching this. We're not turning out the number of people trained to enter the life sciences field nearly enough. There are good jobs out there now, but these good jobs are going to continue to exist for years and for decades to come. It's a great field to think about if students or if parents of students are now talking to their kids and saying, what are we gonna study? If people have any interest at all in this field or related fields, there are opportunities for them. And for us, it's great to expose our Massachusetts kids to these opportunities that we have right here.
Right. Now, just quickly looking ahead, what are some of the future potentials you see in this, as far as attracting more businesses, or just what do you think is like the goal moving forward that we could, as a state and as a district, sort of achieve in this regard?
Well, our overall goal is to keep Massachusetts a great place to live and to make it an even better place to live. And obviously we're challenged with respect to how do we solve, for example, our traffic problem, our transportation problem. And a lot of times it just takes money. So what are the industries that we can look to help in growth, to help our state's revenue? This is the one that we know is our sweet spot. So as long as we're going to cultivate our life sciences, as long as we're going to look at what we do best and make it even better, then we know that businesses, like I said, not just around the country, but around the world, are going to look at Massachusetts, not just Cambridge, not just Somerville, but the areas like Burlington around here where there's a place for them to come in to set up shop and to, again, add to our economy, grow our economy, and make this a better place to live.
Excellent. Just one final question. I want to end on an aspirational note. So I know we're talking a lot about, business, and it's good for the economy, it's good for workers, which is all great, and it's true. But this is a field that literally is on the cutting edge of solving some of humanity's sort of biggest problems, that we've been facing for years. Just sort of talk about what you're hearing as far as, the potential future of just, cures or treatments and things that are coming out of, what's going on here in our state.
Yeah, Rich, thank you for asking that. It's it's breathtaking when I visit Burlington and Bedford businesses and Wilmington businesses, when we see the types of science that they're developing. We see that they're developing products that can help in surgery, for example. They create a way of bonding together tissues so that people can heal in a much quicker way. The examples are just, there are so many examples of the sciences that are helping people live more pain-free, longer, and recover quicker. And these developments, these sciences are helping people it's so rapid. The treatments, for example, cancer treatments that existed 3 years ago are no longer being used in some instances because of new developments that were created right here.
Yeah, it's exciting to see.
It really is.
All right, well, I think we'll end it there. I appreciate you coming in, and I will see you, I'm sure, soon about something else.
Thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Finally, this month, we decided to bring all three guests back into the studio for a roundtable discussion about how their individual pieces fit together to form a coordinated effort. All right, so we have a little extra bonus material this month. We heard from them individually, but we decided why not bring all the guests back at the end of the show to talk about how the different sort of perspectives all work together to sort of fulfill one goal. So here they are. We have Kristen Kastner from the Planning Department, State Rep Kevin Gordon, and Scott Weiss from the Gutierrez Company, and just sort of talk about how local municipal government, state government, and private industry are sort of working as a team in this regard.
Sure. Well, I'll kick off. I think I drew the short straw in the room beforehand to start. I would say that it is fairly unique process here in Burlington of how well we've been able to work together. I give a tremendous amount of credit and kudos to Kristen for having the foresight to think about life science and how to promote it more so in the town of Burlington. The effort that she put forward last year with the zoning change, and then this current effort to help see what was lacking still in the zoning regulations, but to then bring a number of private landowners together to work together on this current effort is really a tremendous positive in how we've been able to work together, bringing landowners working together with the town and the community to all move in the same direction. And then even beyond that, with Ken's involvement at the state level to help think and convene public hearings in the community and to look at how the state participates in this and find ways to improve on that is a tremendous benefit to everybody who lives and works here. So we're really excited to be part of it.
Yeah, to do that, sort of let you in on a secret. Right before we did this show, we were together discussing a plan that would affect the life sciences bill that we're putting together in the legislature right now. After the hearing that we had in Burlington, the House and Senate chair said, go back into Burlington and talk to the folks and find out what they've learned, what they do right, because we have done so much right, and what can we bring to the state as we're creating this overall plan for the state. So the three of us got together, as well as Bob Buckley, who represents, as a lawyer, many of the life sciences interests here. And we're looking at ways that the private industry can come to the municipality, and if they get approval and cooperation on that level, if it's something that the municipality is interested in, then they can come to the state and we'll become a partner as well, and how we can all work together with that symmetry. And it's been really a pleasure for me to be able to work with these folks, with these groups, because we all have our expertise in it. Scott and the developers have been great, the realtors have been great for me, and the town has been a great partner. And so It's really worked out here when everyone can communicate and work toward the common good.
Excellent.
Well, and I think one of the main things that, I mean, life science in Massachusetts is the epicenter of the world for life science, which, I mean, it's bigger than all of us, and it's happening, and it's here, and it's a $10 billion industry. And I think what's been easier is that it's life science is here, and the concept of what do we do here? What do we do together here to try to help promote, create space? It's an industry that's good for us. It's good for private development. It's good for the state. So it's been easy to have a conversation, but it's also given us the opportunity to break down a lot of the traditional barriers of, developer A wants to do this. It's us and them, and the state's putting all this regulation is so terrible. And there's these barriers that exist that haven't been in place here. And I think it's been one of the most rewarding experiences to be able to, as Scott had mentioned before this, was it's us. We're here working together to try to promote an industry in Massachusetts that's good for us, good for everybody, to create space, diversify, as I mentioned before. But we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for state programs. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have the infrastructure grants and the readiness. And if the Gutierrez company didn't pre-permit sites to be ready, and the readiness and preparedness for additional growth. And that's why we're here with these zoning changes and working together. But it's the first time, I think, in all the years I've been in Burlington, that we've been so closely aligned, working together to create and get something passed to really position Burlington to be in the best place it can.
And it's more than just the three of us, obviously. There are other private landowners. There's the whole town staff that has been supportive, but we've also had tremendous positive feedback from the town elected officials, the planning board, members of town meeting. It's really been a great positive process where we're all pulling in the same direction.
Right.
And Rich, you have a role in this too, because the communication that we have to the public here in Burlington, so that they understand that what we're doing is we're bringing good things to the town that not only addresses our economic interests, but also is helping to save lives and make people's lives better here in town and around the world. So we can really take pride in that.
That people can say it was done in Burlington, and we're on the back of the label or the headquarters, or it's exciting. But education's huge. We started this with a panel discussion to educate people what is life science, what's happening, and BCAT continued that with additional panels. So it's everything coming together, and none of us could have done this individually.
Well, it's great to have a project or a goal that everybody can sort of benefit from, and win-win-win, and even more so for the public, as you say. Hopefully, things that affect their lives will be addressed by these new technologies that are being developed.
Rich, I
like
want
you
to point
said,
out
right here in Burlington.
I want to point out we met with Eric Conti also today to talk about education and training opportunities in the life sciences for our students. So we also, bring that into the mix too. Again, another positive avenue that we have in Burlington. We're among those communities recognized with the premier opportunities for education in not only life sciences, but sciences in general.
Yeah, so a lot of looking toward the future, and so I wish you all the best when trying to make this work and come together. And thanks for coming for the show, and then coming back for this little impromptu panel. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Rich.
So there you have it. A look at what Burlington, companies, and the state are doing to attract more life science and biotech companies to the area. I'd like to thank my guests, Planning Director Kristen Kasner, Scott Weiss of the Gutierrez Company, and State Rep Ken Gordon. I'd also like to thank all of you for watching. We'll be back next month with another edition of BNEWS In Depth, so stay tuned.